Thank you for tuning in to episode 48. Today's topic is a little bit different as while we're still talking about marketing, it's less about the strategies and tactics you can employ and more around the tech stacks you use. With so many options out there for pretty much anything you want to do in marketing, it can be a bit overwhelming finding the right tool or solution for your needs as a marketer, but also as your needs as a business as a whole. The pros include being able to do, pretty much whatever you want very easily without needing a large tech team to build it for you. But on the downside, every plugin, every widget you add to your site is adding load after load. And sometimes, if you don't really pay attention, if you don't qualify these products correctly, there could be some very unintentional consequences involved. But before I go any further, I've got Deri Jones here with me, who's going to give the expert view on things. Hi, Deri. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Could you just introduce yourself, give us a bit of your background and why you're doing what you do?
Yeah, sure will. Yeah, Deri Jones. I'm based down here in Canterbury in Kent. Bit of a grey day today. Didn't get the snow. But not a lot of people know this, but the internet actually started in Canterbury in Kent. Not the global internet, which started in the States, but in terms of the UK, it wasn't London. It was down here, the University of Kent, 25, 30 years ago. Had some tech boffins, were dialing up America with modems. Remember those? And that's the only way you could do that, was to dial up America. And these guys got together, put a permanent connection into the States, and I joined them in, must have been in the early 90s, 3 techies, and set up a business spin out from the university, the first internet service provider in the UK. That was even before Tim Berners-Lee, clever guy, invented the web protocol. These guys were dialing the USA.
Oh, wow, nice. I think I'd heard something about it being starting in Canterbury, but not much of the detail.
Yes, that's why I'm down here. I came down to do that, help the university set up, and then since then I've set up a couple of companies, sort of serial entrepreneur style. Moved on. One was internet security testing, again back in the early days when lots of people were hooking up their companies without worrying about security. And then more recently, I'm in the sort of customer experience space, working with about 50 UK brands. We try to maximize the customer experience for our clients.
Awesome. So what sort of things, are there any particular areas you focus on?
Yeah, customer experience is a big wide thing, isn't it? We work with about 50 brands from, FitFlop, Mulberry, Coes, Ralph Lauren, small, large. But our niche really is that we're all trying to, particularly this year, trying to digitally transform and get online and do more online, sell more, ramp it up in lockdown. But of course, every change we make, everything we do, has the risk of making customer experience worse in terms of things like speed, slowness, and in terms of things like, the horrible technical glitches or user glitches that we all find out, where weird things where you click on add to basket and nothing happens, or you put something in the basket and then you can't check out with it because it says it can't deliver it weirdly. We're in that space. We're helping organizations not worry about, we're changing stuff, we're improving our online store. We want to make sure that there's no slips in the technology, in the bugs, in the corners that upsets our shoppers, because only a few disgruntled shoppers obviously cause a lot of social media nuisance. Yeah,
definitely. I was on one website yesterday, I think, actually. I was actually just testing it out for someone, and I noticed that when you go to the cart, if you go to the checkout page, which is kind of almost like it's a separate secure section. If you then want to come back to the website to make a change or something, your cart emptied.
Oh, that's nasty.
Which is not exactly the best experience. Obviously, luckily, I was testing and I was only looking at one product at that point. But yeah, if you've spent maybe an hour browsing, adding a few products to baskets, really kind of picking the ones you want, and then suddenly it all goes because you wanted to change something.
There's all those kind of friction things that's a really nasty one, isn't it? But yeah, anything where you get to the basket and you can't finish, you can't check out, those are just tragic. So we had some recently where exactly that. It said we can't deliver this product, and clearly you could, but there was some combination of postcodes or something. Sometimes it's not even the web guys who've got it wrong. It's not even the web platform. Sometimes it's a back end hook into some kind of warehouse or delivery partner that can have a glitch. So in simple terms, if I'm doing my elevator pitch, I guess I'd say, we aim to reduce friction online, friction for your online shoppers, but also friction between your tech teams and your marketing teams, that they've all got a common view of the truth and they're all confident that there isn't an increasing amount of glitches, slowness, nastiness going on.
Yeah, so that last bit is, I think, particularly interesting. Working between tech teams and marketing teams. Obviously, tech tend to want to. Well, in my experience, tech teams tend to want to build pretty much everything themselves.
Yep.
You could put any requirement in, and the tech team will say, "Okay, cool. We'll scope that out. We will get it in the backlog, and we will look at building this for you." It
From
can be a referral program, a CRM platform, whatever. Someone will suggest they can build it. And obviously the marketing team just wants something quick. We just want to get it in place. And there are loads and loads of plugins and widgets that will generally do that for you. A little bit of code, and it's always pitched that way because those tech companies are pitching to the marketers. So they will say, "Oh, it's a quick 5-minute install. All you've got to do is add a bit of JavaScript and you're done." And so the marketers say, "Okay, well, that's super simple." So it'd be good to know your kind of views on, what are the pros and cons of both methods? Obviously building things and buying off the shelf, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed the issue on the head. There's often a surprising amount of friction between the tech teams and the marketing guys. I mean, sometimes it's because misconceptions. The marketing guys, they know about the glitches, they know about when things break, so they kind of assume, "Gosh, our tech guy, it's not very good," which is often not true at all. But there's a business logic to saying, let's just slap this up. It's a quick bit of code. It looks really quick and simple. Let's just do it. We don't need to have meetings with the tech team. That's logical. But of course, the danger is you start building on top of a foundation in ways that weren't necessarily planned for. And while your tech team are playing with other plugins, playing with JavaScript, upgrading libraries, there's a lot of moving parts now on modern websites. They're no longer just a bit of HTML, a bit of CSS, and you're off. A few images. Now it's JavaScript on top of JavaScript, plugins on top of plugins. So there's a lot of scope for collision, really, between what you're doing with some simple marketing plugins and the other stuff going on with your tech teams. And the end result can be, the law of unintended consequences. You might be adding a better feature, a better search thing, or what have you, better personalization thing, but you can end up making the overall customer experience slower, error prone, and particularly nasty, like the glitch you had, where that might not have been affecting everybody or every product, but certain baskets would empty when you left the checkout. So it's the tech glitches that you don't notice straight away, the nasty ones, that you only notice them, a week later.
And I think, obviously every tool you add, there's the risk that it clashes with something else. So one of those tools might have a bug, might cause a problem. But the ones where it's kind of a user-facing problem, a lot of the time you can fix those, you can work that out because you can see them. So as long as you're kind of being responsible and checking your own website frequently, those sort of errors should be picked up. Again, actually checking out a website recently, at the bottom of the product page, they had it was like, "You might also like these products," or "similar products we recommend," that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it didn't work. If you click through those products just didn't exist.
Oh, nasty.
Well, the link was broken, but you'd get a message saying, "I think it was this product isn't available," or something. But it was, it was like an error page rather than getting to a product and seeing it's out of stock. So there's obviously a problem there, and that they must have been manually putting those in or something, and those products had been removed. I don't know, but it's that sort of thing that can be picked up. But what I think internally people tend to miss is site speed. Because when you're playing around with your website and you're on it every day, I don't think you notice these very slow decreases in load times.
Yeah.
Because you're not really thinking of it in that way. You're not really paying attention to that. And then you add all these plugins and extensions and things, and your site speed slows right down. And that has a big impact on conversion and the customer experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's, the two big things we measure for our clients and the two big things we graph are the glitches and the speed. And they change in unpredictable ways. So parts of your site can stay fast and other parts slow down depending on what you're doing, or it overall slows down. And when you're working on it on a good broadband on a fast laptop, you get one experience, but of course a great chunk of your clients are using it on mobile devices, on flaky 3G, 4G, or whatever. So it's too easy to assume it's okay. That is a classic one. Yeah, I think it's particularly people in the early stages of their kind of online experience. Retailers have only just gone online in the last couple of years, say. They're learning as they go, and it's so easy. There's so many tempting plugins you can stick on, and you end up, if you've got two marketing guys, or a marketing guy and a merchandising, they can each put on their own set of plugins because one wants to track something and the other wants to track something else. And bloat can easily catch up with you. And then it becomes really quite hard to unravel it and wind it back to a nice, fast experience. Yeah.
Yeah, especially as someone will always point to the stats and say, but the plugin works. It's doing its job. Actually, so on the mobile speed issue. Obviously another thing is people are testing on their desktops in their offices. Generally, well, not at the moment, we're all at home, but it's just really easy to kind of just accidentally test on those almost perfect conditions all the time and not really notice things. But then you pull your phone out. My phone signal's not great in my flat, so it's a great opportunity for me to test websites on pretty not great quality signals.
Yeah. No, it's and of course different. A key thing for us is we test 24/7, and we test our system tests from Android and iOS browsers because again, their browsers are slightly different and they can respond speed-wise slightly differently. But obviously, where we see the big bloat, that'll probably be slow on most connections. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any, misconceptions around using plugins and tools for marketers? Or
depends whether you want a kind of a straightforward answer or a slightly maverick, controversial answer.
Let's go controversial. That sounds better.
Okay. I started my career off, 30 years ago as an engineering guy. I migrated to marketing, did a diploma in my late 20s and so on. And it's really interesting, the tech space, how it's almost as faddish as fashion. There are trends in the tech space that have got no logic. Why is yellow the season color for this season? Nobody knows. And so in the tech space, there's a lot of, a couple of years ago, the technology was blockchain, was being trumpeted everywhere. That's going to change the world. But a lot of venture capitalists lost lots of money because there aren't many applications for that technology. But the one at the moment is, of course, machine learning or artificial intelligence or algorithms. So there's a lot of plugins you can get into your website now that talk up how AI they are or how machine learning they are. And, in reality, as an engineer, a lot of what he's doing, you could do with a little bit of spreadsheet skills. You're pulling out profiles if the customer's done that, and if they've done this, and if they've ever bought anything. So you're not really doing anything amazing with it. But again, it's another excuse to slap another plugin in your website. So we see people's people who bought this also bought that kind of bars. They get layers of those on top of each other, or one at the top, one at the bottom. One's doing one kind of thing, one's doing some other kind of thing. In my controversial mode, I'd take machine learning and AI with a little pinch of salt, and don't always believe the sales pitch. But it can work. The best thing about machine learning AI things is where you're trying to crunch your data, and it's stuff that you just wouldn't do otherwise. If you would never do it, it's too big, it's too painful to do manually, then machine learning tools are great for that. You can get 85% accuracy pretty quickly, and that's brilliant because it's better than nothing. But on your website, where you do care about the long tail and you do care about every user and so on, then it can be much harder. So that's my little gripe. Blockchain, AI. There's a new thing now called AGI, artificial general intelligence. That really is AI that does what humans do, but that's another 100 years away anyway.
Yeah. I've had a few conversations about AI recently on the podcast as well. And the general consensus seems to be that at the moment it's really good at saving time for marketers and taking care of some tasks that are maybe just quite admin heavy and don't really need someone to be doing. So if you can automate it with AI, that's great. Interestingly, on the recommended products, I've got a friend who his idea is that those are actually negative for the brand. What you should be saying is, if someone has performed a Google search or whatever, and they've ended up on your website and they found a product, that product should be doing everything in its power to convince you to add it to cart and complete the checkout. By adding those other suggested products, you're kind of basically saying this product might not actually be that great, so just in case, check out this one instead.
That's interesting psychology. Yeah.
So there's that aspect of psychology, and there's also the distraction element of, well, I'll go check this one out, and then on that page there's also a recommendation, so I'll go check that one out. And then you could end up just looping around a website, browsing dozens of products, probably getting into products that you're not actually that interested in. But because it's been suggested, you go, oh, I'll just take a look. I don't really want to buy it now. That's not what I'm looking for, but I'll take a look because it looks interesting. And you could end up just distracting your customers.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of science about trying to make your funnel tight and shepherd people down to the end game. And you're right, that is a divergent thing to open up other products. Are there any solutions to that? Any other than obviously not?
Well, the solution is don't recommend products on product pages, unless it's stuff like color changes, possibly different styles. I suppose if you had, I don't know, off the top of my head, sunglasses or something, and you could buy that. That's probably an awful example. I don't know. Let's computer memory or something.
Yeah,
you've got two 16 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte memory options, but they're just different brands. That is possibly a reason to allow it, because someone might have a preference, and there might be very small differences which actually suit that person's requirements. But even then, I feel like you should be tailoring the process to people getting people there anyway. So you should have actually landed the person on the right product in the first place.
Yeah, actually, I'm fascinated by the whole psychology, user experience. It's not what my team do, but we see so many websites we get a feel and making stuff work. I hate the Amazon kind of black user experience where they trick you into buying Amazon Prime because the other button's grayed out and all that stuff. There's an interesting conversation I had last week with, you got the personalization plugins and players now where you can put up a different search results based on that shopper's past and so on, versus, which has got kind of GDPR issues, versus the ones like, forget that personalization. All we do is we'll just match you to other people. So if you search for a yellow dress, the bar at the top will give you some other yellow dresses, but some yellow trousers as well. Or so it doesn't know who you are, doesn't know what you've bought in the past, no GDPR. It's just what you're doing right now. And so that's it. But again, it's another marquee at the top. You just slap it on top. You do some A/B testing with it. If you get the uplift you get, you start paying the fee for it. So it's interesting. I'm not an expert on all the latest shiniest plugins because we see too many. But the psychology is interesting. Perhaps we should patent a new idea to have a button that says, "Is this product not quite what I want, or can I buy it? I can buy it now." Or perhaps next to the buy button, it says, "Not quite what I want. Click here," and then it gives you some choices. There you go. If that takes off next year, we can claim credit for that.
Interesting. Yeah. So I instead of just showing you some other products, actually having a button which says, "This isn't quite what I'm looking for. Can you show me some suggestions?"
Yeah,
Could be interesting.
I've never heard of this before. But actually it's very powerful because firstly you count the clicks. You can see people saying it's not quite what I want, and that's really useful feedback, isn't it? Attract people by then know who they are, then you know exactly what they're looking at.
Yeah, it could work. Maybe, I mean, I suppose it could work with fashion. It could probably work with anything. But websites where those kind of quiz style funnels work really well, where you can answer a few questions,
right? Yeah,
and then you get shown a product, and then you could say, "This isn't quite what I'm looking for," and then maybe just edit a few criteria, and then it just reloads you a new product. So that could be, it could be quite interesting.
I mean, we're straying into the whole search technology, search user experience, and I was buying some new LED lamps for the house last week, trying to be more green, and Screwfix, Toolstation, all these kind of guys, and some of them make it really easy to filter on your socket and stuff, but others, you can't filter it the way you want, and there's so much choice that you don't want 50 things to match. So it's really, even simple search can be improved. But anyway, that's a little diversion onto our brilliant idea for user experience.
Yeah. Well, that was a diversion away anyway. But no, it's a fair point about filters and things. They are really important. And it's not really so much on the plugin conversation, but yeah, it's important not only to have filters but to get them right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was on. Yeah, there's another example recently. I can't remember the website, but I probably shouldn't say it anyway. It felt like in the filters there was basically just a list of products. So you weren't filtering at kind of category or color or that sort of level. It was almost like, are you looking for this particular product exactly? And you could filter for that. And it wasn't quite that detailed, but there were just loads and loads of filters, and it was just overwhelming. And you kind of looked at it and went, if I can't find what I'm looking for on the listing, the actual kind of category page, I'm not going to find it in the filters either. I mean,
now we're talking about search. It is actually something when we're delivering our experiences, and we're about our system visits your website like a real user, does what real customers does, looks for things, searches for things, puts them in the basket, etc., takes them out, moves around. But one of the common things we find are things like you do a search, sub-search, and then you find that like 80% of your search combos have got no products underneath them. So you're too granular. So a classic one, when I was looking for these lamps, I was looking for, how many watts is the bulb? And so the choice on the left had 5.8 watts, 6 watts, 6.2 watts. It's like, can't you just put all those in one bucket for me? Because they look like the same to me. Of course, that's a very nasty user experience when you use the sensible filters and then it says, nothing matches. Oh, blimey.
Well, really, a great way to filter that would be to have 3 or 4 pictures of what a room looks like lit up with those different lights.
Well, that's very eye orientated, isn't it? Yeah.
Because that tells you exactly. Because I don't know the difference between those either. Yeah. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd be looking things up. I'd have to get the manual out from when I bought my flat, try and find out what's going to be compatible. I'll probably start with Google first just to see if there's a default option. But I think for something like that, a filter which actually just shows you the difference would be fantastic.
I mean, sometimes those searches break. Like if it's a closed store and it's the end of the season, there aren't many sizes or colors left. So you click on blue in size 14. Oh, out of stock. Okay, click on green in size 14. No, out of stock. And that could be really frustrating. We uncover that. People are often surprised what a large percentage of their combinations lead to nowhere. Yeah. My son had an interesting one. He's just gone. He was with us for a month around lockdown, around Christmas, just gone back to his flat in London and wants a wardrobe to fit by the chimney. And buying a wardrobe by the width is really quite tricky. There's a niche there. There's a business to be had there. You go to IKEA and you say, okay, 80 to 100 centimeters wide. And you click on it and all the wardrobes are 79 or they're all 82 wide. For something, there's nothing at a meter or just under it, so it's really unhelpful. You think I'm going to get a range, and you scroll down, and it's like they're all 82. They're all 82 here. Why didn't they just say 82 is the size? So that again that's IKEA. That's a big brand. I mean, they obviously sell a lot of stuff.
I was actually. I don't want to go into this too much because I could rant for a bit of it. I was trying to buy a bookshelf, like a standing bookshelf, the ladder style. If you know that sort of thing. I finally found one that fits the exact space that I need it to. I've got quite a specific width that I've got to work with. Finally found the one I wanted. It's out of stock. Drop my email in to be notified of when it's in stock. During the out of stock period, it went into sale, despite not being available, and you can't buy it. Then they sent out an out of stock notification to over 1,200 people because I asked. I found that out through customer service, but they only had 3 units. They'd only ordered 3 units in, so I missed out. I missed out on it within. I must have been on there pretty quickly. When I look back at the time I got the email, I must have got on there pretty soon after that email came in, and I'd still missed out. But the other one that's annoying me is a property. I'm searching for a property at the moment, and I'm trying to filter for detached houses only.
Yeah. And
for some reason, you still get loads of semi-detached and even terrace houses.
That is.
I don't understand it. Like
that is broken.
You see the first pictures, but they all say detached. So I don't think it's really the fault of the website exactly. I think it's because it's user-generated content because all the estate agents put them up.
Right.
So there must be something they're doing. I imagine some of them are just hitting detached as well because they know they're going to get more eyes on it.
Yeah, that's black marketing again, isn't it?
Actually, I suppose they could
dark arts.
Do that to get more views on it, and then they can say we've got loads of views but no inquiries, therefore you need to drop the price. And then a lower price helps them get the sale quicker. But that's me being very, very pessimistic. And
I can see you're a maverick, cynical thinker like myself. I mean, the other trick is the old recruitment agency trick, isn't it? They put up an advert to get candidates that they haven't got a job for, or they contact you at business saying, I've got these 3 fantastic CVs, have a look. And actually none of them match anybody on their database, but they spray it out to 1,000 people and see who contacts them. So these guys perhaps are saying, hey, it doesn't matter, just slap an advert up. People will come to our site, see that it's not what they want, and then they'll look, once we've got them onto our site, they'll look around. But that's, in terms of search, that's just plain nasty. There's some interesting technology that affects speed. I mean, search is one of the things that affects your site speed more than anything. It's the easiest place. The search and the checkout are the 2 places where you can really have slower pages than the rest, even though it's all on the same technology platform, so to speak. So there's some interesting plugin people now, some coming out, some existing, where they take the whole search thing away from you. So they have access to your product database, and they then do they drop the search into your pages for you. So it's all in the cloud, software as a service kind of thing. But of course, again, the way you integrate that with your JavaScript and plugins, you can lose a lot of the benefit of that and make it worse if you're not careful. But tragically, I don't know how people, detached, non-detached. That's just really hurting. The experience.
Speaking of site speed and things, we should probably get back on track a little bit. Cool. Are there any other kind of mistakes companies make when implementing new marketing tech? I guess we've mentioned adding plugin after plugin. Yeah. But is there any other big or really common mistakes pop up?
Big or common? I mean, going to the highest level, I think that the biggest problem is it's just a classic teamwork thing that you just, marketing guys, read my lips. We have to talk to the tech teams more often. We just have to bring them in. We have to tell them what we're planning before we do the mail shot to 1,200 people with three offers. We have to let them know. Too often we hear, an email goes out to the whole database, huge number of people on the website struggles. And it's like, that doesn't serve anybody, just makes shoppers miffed. So I think it's a high level communication one. Marketing guys talk to your tech teams more often, regularly, involve them, talk about what you're trying to do, listen to them. It's kind of obvious, really, isn't it? But so often it doesn't happen. But and as you start off at the beginning of the conversation, so sometimes the tech guys can be a bit annoying. I used to be a tech guy, so I can say this, say, oh yeah, we'll build that. We'll build it from scratch. That way it'll be bulletproof. It'll be our stuff. It'll be easier to work on when we're finished. And of course, if you build something from scratch, it takes a lot longer. So
well, it takes longer, and you've then got to maintain it and improve it. And when the next, if you build your own referral program, as soon as customer behavior with referrals changes, you've got to redevelop your platform.
Yeah.
Instead, you could be paying maybe a few £100 a month to another company who will be doing all that for you.
Outsource the stuff you can't be good at yourself. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But again, that feeds back into the multiple plugins danger, that you outsource quite a lot of pieces, and then those pieces are being changed by each supplier to their own clock, their own pulse. They're updating JavaScript libraries without asking your permission. You've got no idea, and suddenly an interplay between two of those tools can slow things down, break the search, etc. So it's great to outsource the stuff you can't be good at yourself, but it does increase the risk. And again, that's why talking to your tech team, so they know every plugin you've got and when you bring it in and why, to solve it. Because the worst thing that happens, and it really pisses tech guys off, and it makes problems hard to solve, is when you get these sporadic problems that doesn't affect everybody, but you start to get comments and complaints, like the one you had, or whatever. It's like, this is happening and it shouldn't. So if you haven't got a nice what the tech guys want is a reproducible problem. If you do A and then B and then click on C, you see the problem. If it's not that, it's happened sometimes, but I just tried to buy a pair of shoes and it worked fine for me, that really hurts the tech guys because they've got nothing to build on. And you can go for weeks knowing you've got, glitches going on, but not being able to nail it down. Software is just complex. Software is complicated, and when we keep changing it, we just introduce bugs. There was a really famous one a couple of years ago where, we all use open source libraries in our websites now. And I think it was one on the Node platform that lots of websites were using, and the guy who put it up on the Node's central repository just took it down. It just disappeared. So all these websites would update every week and say, "Is there an update? I'll update." They did that, and they had nothing to grab, and they failed. So hundreds and hundreds of websites failed. Nothing that you had done or your techies had done, but just because this library, in this case, had disappeared. So yeah, just a simple message: talk to your tech team, and agree some. And then the second thing, and the harder thing, really, more specific than that general advice, is start to agree some performance metrics. What is fast enough on your site? What is a fast enough search result? What is a fast enough checkout journey? Those 3 clicks through the checkout stages or whatever. What's fast enough? So that becomes your benchmark, and then ideally measure that so that as people are changing things, you've got a 24/7 metric on that, so you're not accidentally getting slower and slower until it hurts. So yeah, two sides to that, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense. I've said it, for years now. Just generally, it's not even just marketing and tech, but all departments need to be talking to each other a lot more. You need to know what's going on, what each of you are planning and stuff, because you'll come across some of these problems and be able to fix them before they actually become big problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there any other kind of part of the process of deciding on new tech or qualifying new tech that you think companies need to be aware of, be thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, there's the normal project planning thing of checking out a new bit of tech. What are the features? What are the benefits? Often people can move from one bit of tech to a new bit of tech because of the benefits, but then realize there were some drawbacks in other places that they hadn't realized. So sometimes you're 2 steps forward, 1 steps back. I guess, coming from a testing company where we're all about evidence and proof and does it work, do what the customer does to find out is our mantra. So I guess we'd say it's about testing, and the testing as a discipline has been around for a long, long time, decades and decades. And one of the mantras is test early. It's much better to find things early than later. So if you even if it's a very simple plugin and it's one of those ones you think is only this little thing, get it up on a staging server, get it up on a realistic environment, run it, test it, and see what difference it makes to page speed, and run some tests against some classic searches and unusual searches, and just make sure, because it's just way easier to find out there than to find out live. Having said that, our approach is we always test the live environment 24/7, because that's, at the end of the day, that is your only truth.
Yeah.
On any staging environment or test environment or whatever you've got, that is not reality, because it's only when you plug it out there on the internet with all the other things going on your website and all the things they're doing out to your SaaS providers. That's the only thing that clients see.
Definitely.
Yeah. So for our bigger clients, they've got the budget, so we have a whole bunch of journeys running 24/7 on the live site, and those same journeys running 24/7 on their internal staging environment. So clients like Dixon's, where you've got big box delivery, freezers and washing machines, and you've got small box delivery, TVs and mobile phones. We've got journeys measuring all those and the different click and collect versus delivery options, and that way they get much earlier warning of stuff. But even so, you can't test everything, and stuff gets through to live, and we pick it up there in the live site. Simple standard one that all testing companies would say: test early. Just saves a lot of time and a lot of friction for your users.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you just mentioned about there are always errors, always mistakes.
Yeah.
So you can get take a lot of precautions to make sure you've done it properly and you've tested it thoroughly. But these little things are always going to pop up. There'll always be a little edge case that someone notices, either internally or externally, which becomes feedback for the business. And it's important not just to not panic over that as well. It's very easy to, especially if someone contacts customer service and complains about a little error, and they push it to tech and say, this customer really unhappy, this happened, blah blah blah, and then you kind of find out that it happened because they'd accessed, I don't know, a 5-10-year-old version of Internet Explorer on their phone. In the middle of nowhere as well, so their signal was bad. And you get these little edge cases which just maybe don't ignore, because that might mean just go and quickly explore what sort of browsers people are using and see if you do have traffic, a reasonable amount of traffic on one that you're maybe not thinking of too much. But you don't need to worry too much.
It's a really important point. Normally we would say the customer is king, and what the customers tell you is gold dust. But in this space of glitches and slowness, it often isn't, because often they don't tell you the reproducible path. I did this, then I did this, then I did that. So the techies can't even make it fail when they try to. But also, like you're saying, they've got a unique setup, a unique antivirus combination on their PC, or a unique version of Android that's half broken, or so it's often not your website at all. So again, our approach, where we're measuring 24/7 from our controlled environments spread around the world, then you've got a reproducible issue. If it changes, we see it changing, and it's we can tell you it's changed. Did you do a release yesterday? Because it's changed, and you're not just responding to a random I had a problem. It's all about realism. Testing, again, a lot of companies, you can do too much testing, particularly manual testing. That's so painful.
Yeah.
On this kind of mobile, that kind of mobile, on this browser, that browser, have people probably outsourced overseas, whatever. But it's not an effective way of testing. So it's the right sort of testing is what you want.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think there are any trends coming up in the way, or maybe not trends coming up, but how do you see this developing over the next few years in how companies are going to look at this process of assessing what new tech to bring in, but also, I guess, the current tech and what needs to stay, what needs to go?
It's interesting. None of us can predict the future, but we all do our best. I mean, we have a lot of clients who are SMEs up, so we see some of the big e-commerce platforms, the Demandware and Hybris type things that are now part of Salesforce or SAP and so on. We see the big commerce and the commerce tools coming in the middle. We see the shop, people migrating from from homegrown stuff on WooCommerce or homegrown things that are a bit flaky to Shopify, and then outgoing Shopify, which doesn't have great search functionality actually anyway. So you soon find that limiting. So there's a kind of range depending on how big you are and your turnover, how mature you are in your process, as to what kind of technology you have. But the more you do, and let's face it, we're all going to be doing more online than we were before in this post-COVID world. The more that you do, the more you do want to keep under your control, so you can tune it and change it and make it. At the end of the day, the last battleground online is the customer experience. It's pretty hard to have unique products to sell now. It's pretty hard to have unique services to sell. But if you can have really great online user experience, that becomes an edge. So you do need quite a bit of technical control for that. So you can do clever things like your out of stock situation that was so badly handled that you mentioned. So you can do more clever things around out of stock and keeping in contact with people and so on. So it just depends where you are and what stage you are in that process from WooCommerce all the way up to via Magento 2 and Shopify to the big platforms which are being pushed down by the big commerces and the commerce tools who are trying to be all things to all men as well. But at the end of the day, you've got to talk to your tech teams and plan it out. Avoid the knee-jerk reaction. Avoid the. I tell you. Here's another one of my pet whinges. Actually, avoid the phrase, "Well, Amazon do it."
Yeah.
Amazon are $1 trillion company. It's just not worth benchmarking yourself with Amazon. Actually, Amazon's user experience is often pretty poor in terms of usability anyway, and you can beat it with a nice niche brand site. Yeah. Avoid that thing that this giant company does it, so we better copy that. That's just.
Or worse, our competitor does it, so we need to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's also about it. It's a little bit better than comparing yourself to Amazon, but because at least they're in the same kind of space to you. But again, you're right. The copying, the Me Too thing.
Yeah, I mean the reason I say worse is because I think it can easily become quite obsessive. So you see your competitor doing something, and you think, right, they're doing it, so we need to get on this as well. And it very quickly becomes, all you're doing is chasing them.
Yeah,
and not innovating yourself.
You're absolutely right. You've got to focus on your customers. What are they getting? Forget what the competition are giving. What are your customers getting? I mean, you're right. We do sometimes see that with some clients. We're measuring the customer experience of shopping journeys on them, and we're also measuring the shopping experience on journeys on their competitors. And sometimes, they notice more what's changing on their competitors' websites than on their own. Whereas really they should just get on with making their website the best and avoid obsessive comparisons.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, it's a psychological principle that's out there, isn't it? In the world of well-being, isn't it? Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to who you were a year ago.
Yeah.
So don't compare your website to the competition. Compare your website to where you were a year ago. Has it moved on? Is it faster? Is it better? Is the search better?
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking, actually. You mentioned a kind of pet peeve around that's how Amazon do it. Do you have any other kind of general pet peeves when it comes to marketing?
I mean, I talked to a lot of marketers. I'm a bit out of the theory. Back when I did my Chartered Institute of Marketing diploma, and it was all about the 4Ps. Went out to 6, 7Ps. It's all kind of it's different. There've been some interesting discussions I've seen online where what now has become e-commerce and what's left for marketing. Is marketing just marketing communications? And actually, 99% of what we do in our e-commerce stores is merchandising and so on. It's not really, marketing is lost its role because you've got to be an expert in these other things. 100 years ago, we had handmade products online and then to buy, and then factories came along and everybody could afford a set of cutlery or whatever. Then services. Now we bought instant coffee, so we don't have to grind it ourselves. And now it's all about customer experience, and so the role of marketing has become very numeric as well. Of course, you can count every customer, you can count every click. There's a lot of number crunching going on, so that's changed marketing. I guess a whinge there, back to my engineering hat, I guess, would be that marketing guys are famous for misusing the numbers. It's easy to believe just because there were some numbers that it must be true. So yeah, customer surveys. Be really, really careful the questions you ask when you do customer surveys. It's so easy to get stuff back that doesn't really statistically add up to much, or you've led them with the way you phrase the questions.
Yeah, definitely. I've been working on some surveys recently, and I've kind of looped in a friend who does a lot of market research. We're just really, really carefully looking at these surveys because you get one chance, really.
Yeah.
If you can't look at the data and go, this is rubbish, let's tweak it and resend it, because you won't get the response the second time. So and as far as the customer's concerned, they gave you the right, well, not remember the right answer, but they gave you their opinion, their answer. Why does there need to be another survey? So I agree with you there. And just finally then, before we finish, do you have a particular area of marketing that you feel is quite underrated?
Probably not a very good answer, but I might say avoid just looking at your average customer and your average stuff. Really pay attention to your long tail and the 5% at each end, not just the average. The average hides such a lot of stuff that really do look at your data in terms of the wider spread of products, the wider spread of behaviors, etc. That's probably not a great answer, is it?
No, it makes sense. You get. It's the problem with looking at an average CPA, and then you realize that your average CPA might be really high or higher because you've got some really terrible performing campaigns, and equally it might be really low because you've got loads of really cheap customers coming through signing up, but then they're not actually engaging properly, and their lifetime value is low. And then even on lifetime value, if you're simply looking at an average, you might have a bunch of customers who are spending 100,000 a year with you, and a bunch of customers spending a few hundred.
Yep.
So your average lifetime value is now several thousand, and you think, well, this is brilliant. Now we can afford to spend £200 per acquisition because we know we'll earn that back. And actually, 80% of people you're acquiring are going to lose. You're going to lose money on with that. So it's definitely important to segment properly. Make sure you really understand the wider range of customers you have, and then understand how to target those groups and find them. So you
made a much better answer out of that than I did. Thank you. You saved me.
I've been talking a lot about this recently, so it's kind of top of mind. That's been really, really helpful stuff. I think it's really important, that marketers understand you can't just add plugin after plugin, and every tool that you can come across just because it fits in your budget and you think it's going to improve things. If people want to find out more, how should they get in touch? What's the best thing to do?
Best bet for me is LinkedIn. Deri Jones, Deri Jones. It's a pretty unusual Welsh first name, Welsh second name. So there aren't many of us on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find. Deri Jones at Think Tribe. Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Will. Really enjoyed it.
There's no doubt that you can grow your business very quickly by adding all kinds of plugins and widgets to your site, really. As long as you've qualified each one properly, investigated how they work with other plugins, you should be all right. but it's very easy to keep adding and either not getting the value out of them, potentially because of clashes, or worse, getting no value from them, but leaving them in place anyway. So have a process in place for acquiring new tools. You really should even be testing them on a staging site first, and make sure you're keeping an eye on them. It's you never know how updates from third-party providers are going to affect your website or the other plugins on it. So keep an eye on things, remove anything you're not using, consider building some of the tools that aren't so complex as well. If you'd like to learn more about how to set up your tech stack, get in touch with Deri on LinkedIn. Any other questions, feedback, guest requests, do email me at will@customerswhoclick.com or tweet me at Will Lawrenson. Next up, I've got Tom Griffiths with me, and we're going to be talking about how you can use online sentiment to give your business direction. But until then, keep those customers clicking.